Leftover pizza? Just say next week.
There are a few slices of pizza left. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. To those who I have not met, I have the pleasure of meeting. My name is Kardal Coleman. I have the pleasure of serving as your vice chair of the Dallas County Democratic Party. Thank you for choosing this session as session number 2 for your breakout today. This session is specifically about how are we communicating with voters, the 56% of voters who did not vote last midterm cycle. So we want to really dig into that conversation. We have about 35 minutes or so to have that question. We're going to hear from our panelists. Then we're going to open up to Q&A. So we want to hear from you, what's going on in your precinct, what issues are hot topics. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. We have Chris Leal, man of many talents, many hats, Young Democrats. He is a member of Alliance ALT. He is a teacher at DISD. He's a former candidate for state rep. So many things that Chris does. He's an expert at knocking doors, specifically in the downtown and surrounding downtown area. Chris Leal, everybody. Woo! Also, we have the councilwoman from DeSoto, Texas, Councilwoman Chism. Crystal is a force to be reckoned with. She's also our local elected official of the year for the Dallas County Democratic Party last cycle. And she's blazing her trail in the Southwest. And then last but not least, we have Ms. Tiara Cooper. Ms. Tiara Cooper is a national organizer and activist with In Defense of Black Lives, Movement for Black Lives, and Rooted in Liberation. So she is interconnected with a lot of organizations. We are grateful to have her here in Dallas, Texas, and Dallas County, because her work is nationwide, so we're glad that you are here in Dallas. So without further ado, we're going to jump into this panel so that we make sure that we answer all of your questions, have these real, raw, transformative conversations about issue-based organizing and where we've been. So I'm going to kick it off with Chris Leal.
Thank you, Kardal. Thanks everyone for being here in the second session. We're going to, I think each of us will go ahead and address sort of the issue posed in the title for the meeting, and then we want to, as quickly as possible, turn it over and hear from you guys and have, a two-way conversation about this. So this is issue-based organizing and why 56% of Dallas County voters didn't turn out last cycle. And this really gets to voter apathy, right? It's a phrase we've all heard a lot of, voter apathy. But what does that mean, right? And why is this an issue? I think fundamentally it comes down to trust at a certain level. We're all here because we've seen our country is on fire. We have crises everywhere we look. There's all sorts of problems that we have to solve in the coming years. And it's not like people don't care. It's not like people aren't paying attention. It's not like young people don't care. It's not like young black or brown people don't care. We care. It's for some reason, there's a majority last cycle, and many cycles, of people that, despite seeing the world in the condition that it is today, don't believe or don't feel motivated to go out and turn out for a party or for certain candidates. And we need to get to why that is. And messaging is a big part of it. I think about a push versus pull model. We have our set of messaging and policies and candidates, and then we go out there and we organize as hard as we can. And we have to organize, and we have to continue organizing. But that's really the push version of it, right? And so we push as hard as we can, we get a voter turnout, and we think maybe let's just push harder. And we should. But we should also focus on the pull model as well and trying to, what is it that we can do differently? What sort of issues can we talk about? How can we draw people to us rather than trying to just push? And personally, in terms of messaging, I believe it comes down to economics. I had some charts and some slides to show you guys, but we don't have a screen. I feel like a broken record when I say this. I talked about it in my campaign, but wages have been flat in this country for half a century, 50 years. Since the early 1970s, on average, the average wage has not grown, right? But think about, the cost inflation and the cost to simply exist in this country over the last 50 years, right? It's been anything but flat. And, fundamentally, that creates a lot of anxiety in our country, political anxiety, economic anxiety, social anxiety. And, we've seen the other party on the right, how they channel those anxieties, right? They channel them into scapegoats, right? It's into, undocumented people in this country. It's into LGBTQ youth or transgender people or whatever it may be that week, right? And, I think as Democrats, we need to channel that into, I think we do a much healthier job, obviously, of channeling those anxieties, but we've got to address these economic issues because I think that's where the apathies come from. If you look at that chart, for 50 years, wages have been flat. Also, over the last 50 years, the Democratic Party has been in a decline in terms of total state and federal offices held. Actually, when you add up all those offices, the Democratic Party is near a 100-year low, the least amount of seats we hold across the country in 100 years. Okay, and so I think when you're trying to tackle apathy and this lack of trust, think about, was there a time when people did believe more in the system and we didn't have this much apathy, right? And there was. Democrats, together with unions, all right, I'm on the executive board of our teachers union here in Dallas. I come from a union family. Together, Democrats and unions built the middle class of this country, and maybe not coincidentally, when that was strongest, so was the prospects of the Democratic Party electorally. And both of them have just been, unions, straight line down. Wages, right, flat. Democratic Party, electoral success, straight line down. And I think we need to understand how these anxieties economically are manifesting. And I think, unfortunately, when you look at those charts, Democrats have been in power some of those years. It's been, unfortunately, both sides. And not that we are the perpetrators of it, but we haven't done enough to change the trajectory of those trends. And I think that's where the apathy comes from. We've done a great job of making our country and our politics more inclusive. But we need to think about what does that inclusion mean if we're all just getting poorer together and struggling together. And so, I think focusing on these economic issues would be a big part of our changing our messaging.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I am Crystal Chism, and I serve one of the greatest cities in Dallas County, the city of DeSoto. I told the last session, I said, I ran for office in May 2021, so I've only been in the seat for 2 years now, and I immediately became the bad guy. It's like you're a resident, then your name gets on the ballot, and then after you win the election, you're then public enemy number one. There's like no trust at that point, and it's not even a partisan seat. For me, as I think about the 56% that did not go out to vote, and understanding the demographics, as Kardal and Chrissy have told us about that 56%, those are southern Dallas County Black and brown communities. That directly impacts me, right? And so for me, it is about intentionality in how I communicate what the issues are, and not focusing on large problems that we know impact Texas, but bringing it down to the community and what issues are impacting our community, right? Whether it is from economic development or not just economic development, but wages. I grew up as a latchkey. We didn't talk about voting in my house. We talked about Jesus and Jesus every day. And I'm a very religious household. And so there are still single mothers out there trying to make ends meet for their kids, and so that conversation about voting is not happening all the time. But how do you create that, given that you're a precinct chair or a community leader, right? To open up that communication line. So for me, talking about the 56% is having the conversations about the issues at hand, because no one should have to work 3 or 4 jobs just to make a living, right? That's an issue that we need to talk about, because that is an impact in our community and our quality of life. And so also with the intentionality is that when we're organizing, the follow through is everything. And sometimes we get so caught up in, I gotta hit this head count or this voter contact number. I gotta hit 50 doors. I gotta hit 100 doors for the campaign, that we lose sight of the fact that somebody's not following back up with them to say, okay, you committed to vote, but did you go on that day? Are you going to still vote? And so having, even if it's a short list of people that you are dedicated to just ensuring that they get to the polls is everything, right? And we know this, right? Because I think that's a part of when we talk about the 56%, it's the ones that we assumed would go vote. Because when we think of Southern Dallas County, it's a strong Dem community. And so, oh yeah, they're gonna get out and vote. No, not when you have a contentious race as the one that we've seen. And we live in the South where religion is high, right? And so we're talking about issues that question our morality versus issues that actually impact our quality of life. I say that again, I was a surrogate for Beto's campaign speaker for him, and I was going from church to church, and I was cringing at the thought of who was going to attack me around abortion, because it's a topic that the GOP has made more of a morality issue than what it really is, which is an empowerment issue and just stripping away women's rights. And so I got that same shirt at home. I almost wore it today. But what I did was I focused on the issues that are impacting Southern Dallas County, because I went to churches not just in DeSoto, but also in Oak Cliff. And so talking to, whether it was, about voting because of voting rights and the restrictions that already exist and are currently still going on in Dallas County, and the lack of numerous voting centers, or whether it was about jobs, or whether it was about economic development, because redlining south of 30 is real, and just trying to, as a city council member, and trying to court businesses to your city, and there's still the stigma of, oh no, we don't want to come there. Just fighting through that alone, you need even state legislation help with that from that perspective. Just focusing on those issues alone, I actually did not experience the over religious type that was, because everyone that I talked to understood that this is bigger than just the morality of is abortion right or wrong. It's about the freedoms that we have in our country that we've always had and should have, right? So for me, again, the 56% and talking about how did we miss the mark, how do we re-engage them, I think we keep it real simple. We come out of the blue world and red world and saying, oh, they're bad, because it's like the two parents fighting, right? No, it's the back and forth. What we have to focus on are the issues and what's most important to you. I heard someone say that this morning in our opening messaging is, what's most important? And sometimes those issues are right at our fingertips. I talked about Nextdoor in our last session. It's one of those apps that I hate and love at the same time. I hate it because it's a dumping ground for just complaints, and everybody's mad and angry. And I'm like, where's the sunshine? But it's also a place to learn about the issues that are impacting your community. And I like to look at it from a corporate perspective. Most corporate companies, when they're building process improvements, they're not looking at the good reviews. They're focused on the bad reviews, or they should if it's worth anything, right? As we organize, and we should be more interested in what's not working in our community. What has been something that's been championed or we've been talking about and it's still not fixed? Because those are the issues that we should have continuous conversation with, and linking them and connecting them with candidates who have committed to going after those issues. And so the selling becomes not about, okay, blue team, are you a Dem? Are you a strong Dem? Especially for those at 56%, because clearly they're not the choir, right? Clearly they're the passive voter that needs the push, and focusing on the issues that impact them. Tiara, in our prior meeting, she talked about education, which I think is huge about voting. understanding the power that a city council member has is everything. And as precinct chairs and educating people on the fact that we control who is our city manager, who then controls who takes over as police chief, and how they navigate and train and educate and hold their staff accountable to the street lights, to the streets, to the quality of life, the parks, everything, you name it, at the local level is happening at that city council meeting. And that education, some people just don't know. Again, I grew up in a home that we didn't talk about voting. I started voting because I became a part of the Army, and my tour duties then became in Iraq, and then I needed to understand, what was happening at the age of 18 while I'm stepping in unknown territory. So that is how I became aware of how important voting was, but that didn't happen in my home. And so for us as organizers, as community leaders, the messaging for the 56%, we got to bring it down, the apathy piece, and just making it relatable to the issues that are currently existing. I'll stop there and give it over to Tiara.
Sorry. Again, Tiara Cooper, and a little bit about me, and a little bit about myself is that I'm born and raised in South Dallas. It's all I knew. It's all I know. And I say that because South Dallas in particular is a community that sits in the center of so many issues, so much overlap. I mean, it's a food desert, it's an over-policed community, not enough health aid, health resources. And it's just to name a few. And I name those things because at a very young age, I recognize and realize that I sit in between a lot of issues. And at the age of 19, I was incarcerated at the age of 19. So and when I got into this work, I found it really amazing to me that I was knocking on doors trying to get people to get out and vote, and I couldn't even vote myself. But I would tell folks to go vote for me. Go vote for me. I couldn't vote at the time. But I would find ways to connect what personally was impacting me over time. My daughter had health issues, so healthcare mattered to me. Public safety mattered to me. All these things, they mattered to me, and they also matter to everyone in that community. And we might not share the same testimony, but you know someone who's experiencing these issues if you're not indeed experiencing themselves. I said it to say that people will say they're not political, but everything is political. Everything is political. And this work is personal because everything is political now. It always has been. So for one, I think when I do the work, when I'm thinking about issue-based organizing, for one, I don't want to just look at the person as a voter. I've been hearing that a lot, the voter, the person. It's the person. It's a personal work, and we must meet people where they are. I was speaking earlier about the education that happens at the door. We oftentimes assume that people already know what's happening and we're just kind of giving them an update, but we have to make things far more practical. Do you know the power that the city council member holds, the state representative? People understand national politics far more than they understand local politics, believe it or not. And sometimes we have to really start at a different point than we often think. So education is number one. Also, this work is transformational, not transactional. Everything is significant. I just want y'all to know it's significant, knocking those doors. It's significant making those calls. It's significant sending out those texts. It's significant. Everything that we do in this work is significant. When reaching, folks that might lie in the 56%, and I believe for a long period, I would have been in that percentile as well, because like I said, being formerly incarcerated, I couldn't vote for a huge period of my life. And so systems such as VAN, when I would knock doors, I would be like, why are we only knocking 3 houses on the street? And it's like so many other houses, and I could not understand. I could not understand it. Like, well, those aren't frequent voters. Well, those aren't frequent voters. And we have to be smart about our resources, but we also have to be smart about who we're in relationship to and the organizations, the allies that are on the ground. Because maybe we don't have the resources to do that, but maybe we need to outsource or just think more strategic on the out cycle about getting those people into our systems and into our databases. Because I was behind one of those doors, and I'm just saying, getting me on your team is a good thing. So you never want to miss out on anyone. You have to meet people where they are. And I mean, in the barber shops, everything political has to have, at this point, a cultural connection to it. People aren't just, receptive to people knocking on their doors or passing out literature. But did I see you at church this day? Did I see you at the snow cone shop that I hey, in South Dallas? Like, you know what I mean? We have to have a cultural connection. You might like this weird little TV show that comes on, and we need to have like a conversation while we're talking about this TV show, in conjunction too. Because voting has begun to feel like an additional step, like I'm going out my way to do something. And people oftentimes feel like voting is, like I said, going out of your way, but how is it going to change my materialized life? That's the question that people wrestle with that are in this 56%. If I'm going to do this, what is the result of it? Because maybe in the past it didn't go the way I thought. If you have conversations with people, they aren't ignorant. They are not ignorant. They have voted in the past. They might have voted a couple of times, but they expected something, instant. We live in an instant gratification era where people want to see the return on their investment. And oftentimes we have to make things far more practical. Hey, this is a long game. This is a long game that we're fighting. But what I will commit to you is that I will bring you into community. That I will not just show up to your doorstep to go vote, because that's another problem. Is we show up when it's time for an election cycle, and the people say, I don't see these people until it's time to vote. Where did you come from? Amen. We have to build a presence in these communities. We have to build a presence in these communities. It's not just GOTV, it's, the mutual aid. Maybe this person didn't vote because they didn't have child care. Maybe we need to think about how we work in conjunction with the child care agencies. Maybe we need to address the many overlapping issues that are existing that don't just show up once it's time to vote. We have to get real about meeting people where they are. And not just acting like these things show up once a person's name is once that candidate's name is on the ballot. What we're doing is far more transformational than we give it credit for. So we have to get real. We have to build a presence. We have to be in relationship. And that ties back into the trust that Chris was speaking to. How do we build trust in our communities? So that once it's time to vote, when you already locked in, you trust me at my word. We got to lock in, you guys. We got to lock in if we want to move this 56%. 46%. Sorry, I said the number wrong.
And just to piggyback on that, the trust, right? It's really about integrity, right? If you're fighting voter apathy, I mentioned in the first session, like try to imagine, a friend or a family member, or a coworker or something like that, someone who has repeatedly said they were going to do something or they don't do it, right? You just totally lost trust in that. They're like, hey, I'm going to do this, and you're like, yeah, fine. You just sort of tune it out at a certain point. I'm sure everyone has at least someone in their lives like that where they know, hey, if you need something, don't ask that person because they're probably not going to do it, even though they tell you that they might. And if that's where we're at, and when you look at the level of voter apathy and the low turnout rates, given all these crises we have around us, we need to think about how do we counteract that. Sometimes you have to make a dramatic show, or so you have to build integrity as fast as you can somehow. Do something to demonstrate that you are serious about fixing that relationship and addressing those needs. And you can do that organizationally, as Tiara was just talking about. Right, it's not a transaction. You're there in cycle and out of cycle. You're there continuously, or it's through these policies and trying, so organizations or the policy that we're pushing forward. And not just the policies that we say we want, but what we're actually fighting for, what we're actually risking political capital for. We're going to propose this, and these lobbies might not like it or whatever, all right, but we're going to fight for it. And I think that's how people start to pay attention again. I mean, and they're paying attention to the world, right? But they're tuning out some of the electoral politics because they're like, nothing's going to really change. You know, those trend lines of wages being flat for half a century, like, have just been flat. And so, how are we going to attack that?
We'll come right back to that. This conversation about issue-based organizing, of course, as a party, we're a Big Tent party, but this party, even at the county level, isn't a monolith. There's conversations and issues that are really important in Southern Dallas, and that conversation is totally different when we go to Irvin and Grand Prairie. Totally different when we go to the Park Cities. Totally different when I go to Rowlett and Mesquite and Garland, right? We have to be able to understand our messaging and how that plays in each area. We're gonna do a quick exercise. We're gonna just bounce from table to table. Tell me what city or neighborhood you're from. So the panel can see the depth of different issues in the room. So what city and or, we're too loud, okay. What city or neighborhood are you from? Tess.
Park Cities.
Park Cities.
Lake Highlands.
Lake Highlands.
East Dallas.
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 East Dallas. Irving. Lake Highlands. Castleview.
Dixon Circle.
Dixon Circle,
Hey.
Sunny South Dallas.
Mesquite.
Mesquite. Lakewood.
Pleasant Grove.
Pleasant Grove. PG.
Hey.
In the house.
Turn up.
Back of the room there. Irving.
Balch Springs.
Balch Springs. Love Balch Springs.
Yes.
North Dallas. What area do you guys?
South Dallas.
South Dallas. All right. So, just for quick context, last cycle, of course, we had the Roe Wade decision. And Democrats as a whole, nationally and even here in Texas, said that's our issue. We need to latch on to that, and we need to make sure that everybody understands and promotes abortion, health care, right? But when we took that message to certain communities, certain constituencies, certain neighborhoods, it didn't resonate the same, right? So we want everyone to know that we cannot always just latch on to one issue because your neighbors, your neighborhoods, maybe even you view it differently. So we are a Big Tent party, and we have to understand everybody's issue and understand how to talk to those individuals. So I want you guys to kind of speak to that.
Sure, and frankly, that's, these wedge issues have been used for this purpose, guns, abortion, things like this, right, that they use to keep various groups divided. Most of them social issues, people that they use as scapegoats. When I was talking about these anxieties that are created earlier and what they're channeled into, which frankly is one reason why I am so focused on and promote the economic issue, because that is the strongest underlying, the common denominator amongst everyone. When we talk about inequality, these wages being flat, I mean, we're virtually, 90+% of us are in the same boat, and now there are stratifications within that. When you do get issues of people being, oh, I'm slightly more middle class than you or not, and so maybe I shouldn't care about that or whatever, but we have to realize that you should care about it. We are all on the same boat, right? And we can't just sort of rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic, right? We have to make sure the Titanic doesn't sink. And the great thing about the economic issue is that, first and foremost, if Republicans are the party of privilege, Democrats are the party of the people historically, right? The party of working people. And so when you look at how privileged people in this country are doing currently, right, that reflects well on the Republican Party, and how are working people doing in this country, right? And how does that reflect on the Democratic Party? But the great thing about focusing on the economic issues and building that middle class is it's not just a Democratic issue. Even if some current Republican voters or non-voters, aren't explicitly focused on that, they feel that and they do respond to that type of messaging, like economic-based messaging, more than they would, any of these other social arguments that we're trying to make.
Thank you. I would say that when we're looking at, understanding the issues from different areas, because there are an array of neighborhoods in this room, and that's one of the things that I love about Dallas. I can bring it to just DeSoto, right? There's 56,000 residents there, very small square, a city, not huge town, right? But in DeSoto, there are definitely pockets of areas where the income, it differs from some, right? I know what side of town that I'm going to find the $500,000 homes, and their issues are going to be very different from my apartment renter that's in mid-city, or those who have lived in DeSoto for 30 or 40 years and their home, they've been in the same home for the last 50 years. And so understanding what their issues are for me is doing my homework. We oftentimes organize blindly and walk into communities with not the information of understanding the struggle. And when we talk about apathy with voters, part of that is having education about what is going on in the community. I know that south of 30 all the way down to Glen Heights, which is the cutoff for Dallas County, that there is a huge redlining issue. And so when we talk about disparity and equity, it has not happened for years, but understanding how that impacts that community in various forms, because even though the average income in DeSoto is $76,000, that we still struggle with trying to get businesses to come to our city to do business because of the stigma that has been set in the below 30 cities. And so understanding those issues is how you talk to them, right? I'm not talking about the overarching problems that we know that are in our state and nationwide. I'm bringing them down to the local level and having those real conversations, and which is why I mentioned earlier the next door piece, because it is a place where you can go find easy, low-hanging fruit that's happening and connect the dot with the issue with the candidate. And that's why we're not just selling go dim, right? Because we're in a place where folks don't just trust us because you said that you were going to sign up to serve as a precinct chair or you're signing up as a council member. Those things automatically throw you out the pool of trust, unfortunately. But what we're saying is that, hey, I'm a resident too, and I get it. And here are the issues that I see. What do you see? And really, what's important to you? Because it's different for everyone. And I think what we have to do is get strategic in our toolbox to be able to talk to a multifaceted of issues, not just one. And I love Kardal for saying that about the abortion piece, because that was the messaging that went forth. But when you look at the South and being in Texas, a very religious state, that's a conversation that's a little taboo that not many people want to make. And then you have the conversation of, oh, they've gone too right. But I could talk about the voting rights, right? Because those were also impacted in the last legislation. We saw less voting centers, more restrictions on identification. Just flat out, just tell me that you want me to not vote already, please. Education, and this whole CRT scare that has taken over our education systems. And then now hearing about the voucher piece so that we can just further defund public education, right? I grew up in Dallas ISD. I am a product of the Dallas ISD, and I will always champion for ISD because I know that it makes brilliant people. And yeah, so it becomes very easy for us then to have these conversations, because I don't have to just focus on women's rights, even though I'm a huge advocate for women's rights. And guess what? I love the Lord too. How about that? Yeah. You can do both. Contrary to popular belief, you can. But having a multifaceted of talking points on an array of issues that are impacting our community. Because if we really think about it, whether we're in the South or North, these things are impacting us all, just maybe a little bit differently. And maybe we don't feel the heat as much when we talk about income and not having to, my mother had to have multiple jobs, to make sure that she could provide for us. And as a result, we were latchkey kids. But that happens even on the north side. There's someone who is an exec in a corporate and is always gone, or is working those same multiple jobs just to make ends meet. We just have to take the blinders off a little bit, have a little bit of apathy, and really listen instead of talking as much about why I need you to be a Dem, why I need you to vote for a Dem. What's important to you? And starting there with an open-ended question and listening. Sometimes I think we just talk too much and we don't listen enough, because we will be able to educate on those candidates if we just stop and listen to what they're saying.
I have many comments on this, but I would just start with the fact that, like, for me personally as an organizer, I learned really early on, like, you cannot take top down or blindly accept top down messaging, top down issues, and assume that that's what people are dealing with in their everyday lives, or that's the most pressing issue or the priority that's on their mind when they wake up in the morning. They want to know that you are addressing their priorities. They want to know that you care about what they care about, essentially. So like Crystal was saying, listen. We have to listen more than we speak. And then also, we must know the laborers on the ground or be connected to them in some way, form, or fashion, because we can't just go stomping around saying this is and make it your priorities and make it your business. The better thing to do would be to have a listening session, or to just listen to the people and see where their hearts are and see where they are. And maybe I just connect with you on that issue specifically versus telling you what issue what issue is your issue. Because inherently, I think we do a lot better if we get away from, like, what do you call it? Candidate guides, that kind of a thing. Get more to issue-based guides. We have to get issue-based guides out there. And then inherently, we can reuse those things and continue to connect candidates to those issues that make more sense for them. Also, you need vetted voices. You need vetted voices, ambassadors of some sort, to be the ones to actually convey the message that we're trying to convey. Because oftentimes, like the fear mongering and all the different things makes it harder for you to even digest what's being said or what's being stated. And how you talk about things matter. The way we receive things in defense of Black Lives, which is the organization, might look differently for how I do my faith-based organizing, right? And how we talk about our rights being under attack. And you have to know where you're going. So that education, but also like doing your homework in advance and having a toolkit full of you need many weapons in your toolkit. You need many tools in your arsenal. So being able to know what tools to pull out when you're at the door or when you're in conversation with people. Listen first. Ask people what issues matter most important to them. Take a look at the scenery, the community that they say that they're from. Listen and observe before you just go in and go in something blindly or take top down orders. Because just from my organizing experience, there was national language and national issues when I was organizing. They would say, y'all go do this in Texas. And I would say, well, that wouldn't work in Texas. That might work in Chicago, and that might work in New York, and that might work in California, but that wouldn't work in the same way because we're working at I got to kind of break the ice. We need to just start having general conversations first. We need to first start just talking about it, right? We have to get real about where we're starting at on certain things and not just blindly go do the thing. We have to be real.
Let me ask you something. How many precinct chairs do we have here in the room? Raise your hand. All right, keep your hands up. If you have a relationship with your local elected officials, your council member, your mayor, okay, that's great. So keep your hands up if you've already started planning out and organizing for this May election and having a candidate forum, a candidate meet and greet, some type of education that is for this upcoming May election. This is amazing. I think I have more hands now than we did in the last class. So I want to stress, because as Democrats, we often focus on the partisan races. And, I often I get nudged sometimes, like, you're very partisan, to be in a nonpartisan seat. And I do it unapologetically because at the end of the day, we're a two-party state. Somebody's voting for something. Yeah. right now is your bread and butter. Not right now is your time to build your volunteer base, but also to build that base of voters that you can then nudge again in January. So when we talk about trust, when we talk about let me see you beyond just the voting time frame when it's time to vote, let me see my precinct chairs and in partnering with their local electeds to block walk, to have those conversations about when the election is coming up, who's on the ballot, what's on the ballot, giving that education of what the importance of a city council member, a mayor's seat. I mean, all of Dallas's seats are up. Like, it's one of those cities that everybody runs the same time. That's imperative because this collection could completely change the whole city and then the direction and the vision of where they're already headed. So having those conversations today will be your fruits of your labor tomorrow in 2024 when we're talking about winning, because we didn't just show up to the game when the partisan race started. We were already doing the work and building our base now in a local election. Some folks don't vote in local elections. We know this. And some folks don't vote in national elections or governor elections. As we saw at the state level, there's the huge disparity, the 56%. Every issue that we had facing in this world, in this country, in this state, and 56% of our voting population in Dallas County did not show up. That's cringe. That should make us cringe, but it should also push us to step our game up and start engaging them much sooner, understanding their issues, tying it to a local election, because if they can see the success on the local level, imagine the fire that would be behind them at your state elections and your national elections, right? Because now I know my voice counts. I know that it's 50 plus 1 at the local level, right? I believe sometimes the electoral gets us caught up to, oh, my vote doesn't count. But every single vote counts, and they can see it even more prevalent at the local level. And so I encourage you, precinct chairs, if you haven't started planning, start to plan. Invite me. I love to come. I'll help you however I possibly can get your message across to educate voters, because it takes a team of us, right? We have to work together. Your precinct chairs and local electeds should be partnering together to get this messaging out. And it doesn't, whether it's partisan or nonpartisan, we still need you to vote, right? To be a part of the democratic process.
Thank you guys so much. Again, this conversation is about issue-based organizing. We have about 10 minutes left before we go back to general session. So are there any questions around issue-based organizing, how we have these conversations with folks who are around us? We'll start here with Dr. Grayson, and we'll work our way back.
So I just want to share too, what I've done in my precincts is I have worked to be all inclusive. For instance, my individuals that are formerly incarcerated, you got to tell who we should be voting for, and the ones of you that can are off paper, they did vote. We are having a second chance job fair, and I do have a question, in which we have a Hispanic group and a non-Hispanic group. They're coming in to speak to talk about voting. Then I have a former elected official coming in to talk about advocacy after incarceration. Your voice still matters. But here's what my question is. In Dixon, I have 3 huge apartment complexes that are filled mostly with undocumented Hispanic folks.
Right.
Killing it. Is it still of value to somewhat go after them to see if I can ferret out who may be eligible? I don't know that many are. Should I still be trying? I'm going to cross that bridge regardless,
right?
Just for base, but do they add any value to our process? I guess is what I'm asking.
Great question. Can we get an answer in 30 seconds? 30-second answer.
Yes.
I say yes.
Yes.
Okay, that was the answer, yes.
Yes. And what we did last session is not only do we have subject matter experts here as panelists, but all of you are subject matter experts in your different fields. And so there we have folks who bring language justice to the room, folks who may be a part of that community in the room. So we want to make sure we give space to answer those questions. Are you asking a question or answering?
No, I'm just going to say yes, because I experienced this on both sides of where I live.
Okay.
On both sides. And I know the parents do not vote. They're not citizens. But they got kids in high school that are only 1 to 2 years away.
Yep.
Exactly.
And I'm trying to make, I invite them to everything.
Multi-generational families there, yeah.
And so from my understanding, the children are eligible to vote.
Yes. Depending.
Martin.
My answer for that one is yes, and the reason is because they may not be eligible to vote, but they know somebody who can, and they can talk to that individual and have that individual go vote. They're making their voice count through that other individual who they're talking to, but they're hopefully working on the process to be eligible to vote.
And I'll just say quickly, like I said, I was formerly incarcerated. I couldn't vote for a long period of time, but I was still getting people out there to go vote. Even from working those, like the campaign cycle, to working on SB4. There were people that I was connecting with that was undocumented who could share why we needed that bill more than anybody, because they were undocumented and they needed wages. So we had to find ways to figure things out for them. But those are some of your greatest ambassadors, and you don't want to miss them.
That's right.
And follow up to that is those people who were talking about that live in those apartment complexes, you can recruit them to go out and support you because they speak their language.
Yes, and they trust them and they're vetted.
They can go out there and tell them whatever you want to tell them in Spanish to get them out to go vote.
Now, as a nonprofit, I can't support a candidate, but I can support voting.
And issues.
The issues.
Community service hours for them working.
Issues. We
Beyond
gotta stick to
yes,
issues because
issues.
everyone has an issue. While we're on that topic, shout out to our high school students who were in the room as well. Who were campaign workers last cycle. Really got out there, knocked a lot of doors in their community, having those conversations. And then I believe they will be of voting age very soon. So. Next question.
What do the three of you, especially you that promote the DIC, which I believe in, what do you think about Abbott's State of the State, where he outright said, I'm going to give people options, which means he's going to take money away from the public schools and the indoctrination the other way. What's y'all's reaction, how to counter that?
We're going to give this 30 seconds to our teacher. Is that okay? We have a teacher here.
Yeah, so I am a DAS ISD teacher. I'm also on the board for our teachers union, Alliance AFT. Look, privatization and attacking public schools has long been their strategy. Whether it's charters, whether it's vouchers, it's just different ways for them to take public funds away from public schools, actually public schools. And so, that's a fight that we've got going on. We were a little more optimistic on the voucher situation until they just changed the education committee in the legislature. And so, the only piece here that keeps me makes me a little hopeful is that education. There are actually rural Republicans who support public education. That's the only reason we don't have vouchers already. That's the only reason we don't have more charters already. Is because there are people who, on the other side, that truly value public education. And so we've got to make sure we reach out to that. They're really diabolical, the Republicans in the state legislature, that are trying to separate us on that issue. That's why they're bringing up things like, the censorship in the classrooms and CRT and stuff like that, because they're trying to separate us from our supporters in rural areas.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Jamar, then we'll come to Beth.
Me, him?
Jamar, and then we'll.
Okay.
Jamar.
Oh, so with the problem of people not voting and the reason Abbott got in, because not that many people voted, when is the Democratic Party going to tackle the issue to checkmate it, talk about mandatory voting like other modern countries such as Australia? If we make it mandate to participate in your government, I think we can checkmate it, and then all of us as a whole, we have to ride on this shit together, because we're going to register voters every year. We've been dealing with participation for the last, I'm 42. since the 60s. That's the issue. When are we gonna talk about mandatory voting? That's checkmate.
That's a great thought.
Beth.
I saw a news thing about how Republicans are making inroads into the Hispanic communities, and it's because they established a storefront in communities, and they will hook people up with different services. Can you speak to that at all about, are there any things like that that Democrats are doing locally to help people and bring people in?
About our allied organization.
Yeah. Well, I'm a part of what's the name of the collective? I just call it a community advisory. Honestly, with the Democratic Party, and it's made up of many different allied organizations that are doing like a lot of that mutual aid work. I'm a part of one of those organizations, In Defense of Black Lives. So anytime we're hosting anything communally, we allow the Democratic Party to know that, you know, you all can show up in any form of fashion, because it comes back to building that presence. So what they're saying is essentially we're building a presence. We post it up in this community. They know us by name. They know what we're doing for them, with them. Potentially we're giving them jobs and things of that nature. But we can do a better job. So if you have businesses or know people who are in businesses, we have to do more within those communities as well. It's not just the organizations, but who are the businesses as well, because whenever one thing I noticed in South Dallas is once like certain bills were being passed, or like for instance when the governor is like, oh, we want to send the state troopers to South Dallas, that impacted businesses, and businesses was damned upset. They was like, people ain't coming over here right now, because every step of the way it was a police officer on every street and the block was hot. So we got to get real and bring people in real ways. Hey, we need the businesses to be, everything is political as we see. So we need you to come on board too. So I think it's not just up to the allied organizations, the community advisory, but we got to start bringing in businesses, which is what it sounds like the Republicans are starting to do.
I want to add to that really quickly, Tiara, and we'll get to Jesse. We have to build better partnerships as a party. Everything cannot fall on the shoulders of the Democratic Party, right? There are other allied organizations like LULAC, right? Like Mi Familia Vota. There are a lot of organizations, a number of allied organizations that the party work with who are, one, already doing the work, have a network of people, are subject matter experts at these things, and we have to allow them, like we did in the coordinated campaign, here's your territory, go out and be great at that. Here's your job role, go out and be great at that. So one, when the Democratic Party starts to be the big tent party that it's supposed to be, and bring in our allied organizations and empower them to serve in their roles, that's when we'll see kind of that crossover. Jesse?
Just real quick, when we talk about local elections, I believe the one here is going to happen May 6th.
Yes.
May 5th is Cinco de Mayo. So let me just share real quick, which I think is a hindrance when we do the vote. When I lived in Pleasant Grove for a little while, when we had our own district, District 5, when that started out, I reached out, I worked on the campaign, and did voting, hey, go early vote. We were finally going to put Latino in Pleasant Grove, let's get on this. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And I tried to get everybody to do early voting during that time, because it was changing. Nobody did, because I got the list who voted, and I called about 100 people. And then so, hey, the election's coming up, I need you to go vote. You make that early. Oh yeah, I'll give it a chance. After that, nobody did. Everybody I talked to, what happened? Well, we were at Joe Pool Lake, that weekend, because we were having a good time. We were at the Cinco de Mayo parade. We were at this thing. So that issue takes effect with the state legislature to let them know if we want to increase the voting.
They
Don't have national election voting on Christmas Day. You're not going to get anybody to do that. Don't have it also on a big impact day. May 5th, Cinco de Mayo is not a Hispanic holiday. It's nothing celebrated. A lost battle in Mexico. But it's not even celebrated to them, but it's a drinking holiday everybody wants to be. And events are going on. They're going to go on that election day. And I guarantee you that in my family, they're going to kind of go to Joe Pool Lake, or do I want to go help Jesse go canvass on the thing up there? I'm going to Joe Pool Lake, I'll work the next election, stuff like that. So there's a big issue there trying to get, that we need to make it either not mandatory, I don't think it's mandatory is the answer, but make it a federal holiday or a holiday to be off or not near a conflicting event. It's good. People are going to have parties Cinco de Mayo. That's the same day as the election day.
Yes.
It takes a few minutes, but if you organize those events, you're going to want to do that party, which is fine. Go celebrate, you know.
The Republican Texas legislature loves that though.
Yeah, they do. That's why you need to know that you need to be down there.
Dates.
Yeah.
The
It lowers
legislature
turnout.
sets
It
the
needs to be done
dates.
to change there,
They do that
but you know, we need to, I personally think we need to really change that down there to get more people to vote.
Thank you. And that's a conversation about decreasing barriers to be able to vote. We got time for one last question, and there's a hand back there.
How about, and I say this all the time, how about everybody in this room is assigned 10 voters who don't vote, and coddle them, get in touch with them in an election primary week or early voting week, get them to vote. You know, there's a whole lot, we talked about registered people to vote. We have a lot of fishing to see who's registered, who don't participate. I've been knocking on doors for maybe 40 years. Everybody says they're gonna vote, and they don't vote. They sign the registration cards as goodwill, but they never follow through. We are the political junkies. The political junkie. If we are political junkies, find 10 voters registered and don't vote, and they don't have to be junkies. Have coffee with them, call them, and get that. You imagine 1,000 junkies, 10 voters. We can bet on one.
I understand your math. I understand your math. No, that's a great point, and that's what this whole thing is about.
But we are talking about the shotgun approach.
Right.
I'm talking about the sharpshooting.
Right.
Go after them and get them to go to the vote.
Absolutely.
Because we got to think out the box, because we haven't thought out of the box for a long, forever.
I totally
That's why
agree.
they ain't always been.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that math makes sense. So,
There's more of us than them.
and Andrew, we have what? Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. What we have, the solution of that is what we call DEM teams, short for Democratic teams, and we have kind of like those Navy SEAL short, small groups that go into different areas, neighborhoods, precincts, and we do just that. So we would love for you to be a part of that. So that's just a quick solution, guys. Thank you so much for being here. We want to give it up for our panel. Really quick, before we end, I want them to give their social media handle, email, whatever way that they want to be contacted, followed, so that you can stay in contact with these guys. Website, anything.
My name's Chris Leal, Leal. Find me on Facebook or Instagram. Leal. Leal, Spanish for loyal.
Hey, I like that. My name's not Spanish for loyal. I'm Crystal Chism. My handle on IG or Instagram is Crystal Chism. You can find me on Facebook, Crystal Chism. My website is crystalchism.com. And I am with the city of DeSoto. So if you bring up city of DeSoto, search Crystal Chism, and my picture and telephone number will come up as well. And that's CHISM.
Tiara Cooper, you can find me at Tiara Cooper on Facebook, Tiara Cooper on Instagram, email tcooper@tcadp.org. You can also find me at In Defense of Black Lives Dallas on Instagram, Facebook.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining this session. Thank you for hanging with us for the full day. We have one last general session in the next room, but we'll conclude from there. Thank you guys so much for being here.
All right, thank you guys. That was great.
Yes, that was amazing.
Look at y'all.
Great panelists.
Cardal tried to throw us into the deep end, but we survived. We swam, all right?
Take a picture of us together.
Yeah.
Rooted in depression.
What's the deep end? Y'all ready for this? Hold on, this is our mic. Boom.
Because we know there's groups that we collaborate with, DeSoto, we